Have you ever opened your fridge and felt a quiet sense of comfort? Like everything is in its place. Safe. Clean. Fresh. It's something many of us have come to rely on, the refrigerator. We think, if I keep it in the fridge, it'll last longer, taste better, and stay safe. And for many things, that's true. But not everything. You might be surprised to hear this, but some of the foods we've been storing in the refrigerator for years actually lose their flavor, their nutrition, and in some cases, even become a little harmful. In today's video, I want to share with you 10 common foods you should never keep in your refrigerator. We'll go through them one by one, and I'll explain why they don't belong in there, what actually happens to them, and how you can store them the right way to make the most of their taste, their health benefits, and their shelf life. Now, before we dive in, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from? Comment below and share your city. I always enjoy hearing from you. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more tips like these. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming up next. 1. Potatoes. Now, let's talk about potatoes. Good old, comforting, always there for you potatoes. Whether you mash them, bake them, fry them, or turn them into soup, they've probably been part of your meals for decades. So it feels natural to want to keep them fresh as long as possible, and for many people, that means putting them in the fridge. But the fridge isn't doing your potatoes any favors. When potatoes are stored in cold temperatures, something strange starts to happen. The natural starch inside the potato begins to turn into sugar. You might not notice it right away, but it changes the way the potato cooks and tastes. Instead of that warm, earthy flavor we all love, the potato turns sweet, sometimes weirdly sweet, and it messes with the texture too. It can get gritty, grainy, or even a little mushy in the wrong way. But here's what's more important: when those sugar-filled potatoes are cooked at high heat, especially when they're fried or roasted, they can form a chemical called acrylamide. This substance has been studied for possible links to cancer. Now, I'm not saying one plate of fries will hurt you, but if we can avoid that risk with a simple habit change, why not? Potatoes also hate moisture, and the fridge is a damp place. That moisture causes them to spoil faster, get soft spots, or even start smelling off. Instead, give your potatoes a cozy, dry home. A kitchen drawer, a paper bag, even a basket in a cool corner of your pantry will do just fine. Keep them away from onions too. The gases from onions will make them sprout and spoil quicker. So, the next time you bring home a sack of potatoes, skip the fridge. You'll get better taste, better texture, and fewer worries. Let them breathe a little. They'll thank you by tasting the way they're supposed to, simple, hearty, and just right. 2. Tomatoes. If you've been keeping your tomatoes in the refrigerator, you may have noticed they just don't taste the same anymore. That's not your imagination. Cold temperatures actually change the chemistry of a tomato. When you place a tomato in the fridge, the cold stops its natural ripening process, and that process is what gives tomatoes their deep, sweet, rich flavor. Without it, they turn bland and mealy. The texture gets soft in a way that's not pleasant, and the taste? Well, it just kind of disappears. Tomatoes also contain a powerful antioxidant called lycopene. It's been linked to heart health and even cancer prevention. But storing tomatoes in the fridge can reduce the amount of lycopene they hold. So not only are you losing taste, you're losing some of the nutrition too. Now, if you've ever wondered why store-bought tomatoes don't taste like the ones from your backyard garden years ago, this is part of the reason. Commercial tomatoes are often picked early and chilled during shipping, which kills off a lot of that natural ripening magic. So what should you do instead? Keep your tomatoes out on the counter. Let them ripen naturally at room temperature. And here's a little tip: place them stem side down. It slows down the moisture loss and keeps them plump longer. Only, put them in the fridge if they're fully ripe and you won't be eating them for another day or two. And if you do, let them come back to room temperature before using them. That helps bring back some of their flavor. Tomatoes are one of life's simple pleasures. Let's treat them right, so every bite tastes like it's supposed to, fresh, juicy, and full of sunshine. 3. Onions. Onions might not always get the spotlight, but let's be honest, they're the backbone of so many meals. Whether you're making a stew, a stir-fry, a soup, or even a simple sandwich, a little bit of onion can turn something ordinary into something rich and flavorful. But if you're keeping your onions in the fridge, it might be time to stop. The fridge is too cold and too damp for onions. These bulbs are meant to be kept in dry, well-ventilated spaces, not in a humid box. When you put onions in the fridge, the moisture starts creeping in. That can make them soft, slimy, or even moldy. And the texture, which should be crisp and firm, becomes mushy or rubbery. It's not just unappetizing, it's frustrating, especially when you're trying to cook a nice meal. Plus, onions have a strong smell. And once they're in the fridge, that smell doesn't stay put. It seeps into everything. Your butter, your fruit, even your milk, all of it starts picking up that onion scent. It's not dangerous, but it's unpleasant. Imagine making coffee and your cream smells like onions. Not exactly what you want to wake up to. Here's what works better: store whole onions in a cool, dark, and dry place. A pantry shelf, a basket on the counter, even a paper bag, anything that allows air to circulate. And keep them away from potatoes. Potatoes release moisture and gases that can make onions spoil faster. It's like putting two troublemakers together. Now, if you've already sliced or peeled an onion, then the fridge makes sense, but only if it's sealed up tight in an airtight container or wrapped well. That keeps the smell in and the moisture out. 4. Garlic. Garlic is more than just flavor, it's tradition. It's been passed down through generations, not just for how it makes food taste, but for what it adds to life. Whether you're roasting it until it's soft and sweet, or mincing it into a rich sauce, garlic brings depth and warmth that nothing else quite matches. In the fridge, garlic starts to sprout faster, those little green shoots that pop out of the cloves. They're a sign your garlic's turning bitter. It doesn't go bad right away, but it definitely loses that smooth, strong flavor we all love. Even worse, garlic in the fridge is more likely to develop mold or soft spots. That's because the moisture in the refrigerator encourages decay. You might pull out a bulb one day, only to find it squishy, discolored, or smells a little off, and that's frustrating when you were just trying to make a simple meal. Here's the better way: store garlic in a dry, well-ventilated place. Think mesh bags, baskets, or even a ceramic garlic keeper if you have one. Garlic likes to breathe. Keep the whole bulbs together and don't break them apart until you're ready to use them. Once you do break a bulb, try to use it within a week or so for the best flavor. Now, if you're chopping or crushing garlic ahead of time, and you must refrigerate it, seal it up tight. An airtight container is a must. And if you're preserving garlic in oil, be very careful. That should go in the fridge and be used within a few days to avoid any health risks, like botulism. 5. Avocados. Avocados. Creamy, rich, and good for the heart, they've become a favorite in so many households. Whether you enjoy them on toast, in a salad, or blended into a smoothie, there's no denying they've earned their place at the table. But when it comes to storing avocados, timing is everything, and the fridge isn't always your friend. If your avocado is still hard and not yet ripe, putting it in the fridge is a mistake. Cold air stops the ripening process, leaving you with a fruit that might look ready on the outside but stays hard, flavorless, or even rubbery on the inside. You wait and wait, but it never softens properly. And when you finally cut it open, it's either disappointing or just plain strange. Avocados ripen best at room temperature. If you leave them on the counter, they'll soften naturally, and the taste develops into that buttery, nutty flavor we all love. And if you want to speed things up, here's an old trick: put the avocado in a brown paper bag with a banana or an apple. These fruits give off ethylene gas, which helps the avocado ripen faster. Now, once your avocado is perfectly ripe, soft to the touch but not mushy, that's when the fridge can help. It'll slow down the ripening and give you a day or two before it starts to go bad. Just don't forget about it. The longer it sits, the more it loses that lovely texture and starts to darken or taste off. If you've already cut the avocado, sprinkle a little lemon or lime juice on the exposed flesh to slow the browning. Then wrap it tight or seal it in a container. That'll keep it looking and tasting fresh for a bit longer. Avocados are delicate, a little care goes a long way. Keep them on the counter to ripen, chill them only when they're ready, and enjoy every smooth, satisfying bite while it's at its best. 6. Bananas. Bananas are one of the simplest, most comforting fruits around. They're soft, naturally sweet, full of potassium, and easy on the stomach. Many of us grew up eating them with breakfast or packing them in lunchboxes. And when you've got a few ripe ones on the counter, it's tempting to think, let me pop these in the fridge so they last longer. But that's where things go sideways. Bananas are tropical fruits. They're used to warm climates, not cold ones. When you put them in the fridge before they're ripe, the cold interrupts their natural ripening process. The skin turns dark, sometimes nearly black, while the inside stays firm, dry, and a little chalky. It's confusing, right? They look overripe, but they feel underdone. That's because the cold damages the fruit's cells before they can finish ripening. This is something called a chilling injury. It makes bananas lose their flavor, messes with the texture, and honestly, just takes the joy out of eating them. And the worst part? Even if you take them out and let them sit at room temperature again, they won't recover. The damage is already done. So here's the better option: leave your bananas out on the counter. Let them ripen the way nature intended, from green to yellow, and then to those sweet, spotted beauties we all know and love. If you want to slow them down just a little, try separating them from the bunch or moving them away from other fruits like apples, which release gases that make bananas ripen faster. Now, if your bananas are already very ripe and you know you won't finish them in time, then the freezer is your best friend. Peel them first, slice them if you like, and store them in a bag. They're perfect for smoothies, baking, or even just a cool snack. So the next time you reach for the fridge, pause. Bananas are better off in the warmth. Let them do their thing, and they'll reward you with that soft, sweet goodness every time. 7. Uncut melons. Think of a hot afternoon, maybe in July. Maybe you're sitting on the porch, and someone hands you a slice of watermelon, cold, juicy, and dripping down your chin. Or maybe it's a bowl of cantaloupe or honeydew served after dinner. Melons have always felt like a gentle reward, light, refreshing, and easy to enjoy. But there's something important to know about storing them, especially when they're still whole and uncut. If you've been putting whole melons in the refrigerator right after bringing them home, you might want to stop. While it seems like the fridge would help keep them fresh, it actually does the opposite. It puts a pause on the natural ripening process. Melons continue to ripen after they're picked. They build up sweetness and flavor over time. But when you refrigerate them too early, that process just stops. And that's not all. The texture changes, too. Cold temperatures can cause the melon cells to break down, especially in watermelons. Instead of that clean, crisp bite, you get something grainy, almost mushy. With cantaloupe and honeydew, the sweetness fades, and the flesh can become rubbery or bland. There's also a nutritional side to this. Studies show that melons kept at room temperature hold on to more of their antioxidants, things like vitamin C and beta-carotene, which help your immune system and overall health. So, keeping melons on the counter doesn't just make them taste better, it's better for your body, too. Here's the simple solution: leave whole, uncut melons at room temperature. Once you cut into them, then the fridge comes into play. Wrap the slices or chunks tightly and enjoy them within 3 or 4 days. That's the best way to keep them fresh and safe. So next time you bring home a melon, let it rest on the counter. Let it ripen the way it was meant to. You'll get more flavor, more nutrition, and more of that sweet, simple joy we all remember. 8. Bread. Bread is more than just food. It's comfort. It's history. It's the smell of a fresh loaf on a Sunday morning, a sandwich packed with care, or a slice of toast with a warm cup of tea. Whether it's soft sandwich bread or a crusty artisan loaf, bread has a way of making any meal feel complete. But if you've been storing your bread in the refrigerator to keep it from going bad, it might be time to rethink that. Here's what many people don't realize: putting bread in the fridge actually makes it go stale faster. Yes, even though it might delay mold, the cold temperatures change the structure of the bread starch. This process, called retrogradation, causes the bread to dry out and become tough or crumbly. That soft, fresh texture turns into something dry and chewy, and it just doesn't taste the same. And it's not just the inside that suffers. The crust can become soggy from the fridge's moisture, losing its crunch. So what you're left with is bread that's too hard inside and too soft outside, and nobody wants that. So, what should you do instead? If you'll eat the loaf within a few days, store it at room temperature in a bread box, paper bag, or even just its original wrapper. Keep it in a cool, dry place, not near the stove, not near the sink. Somewhere it can breathe a bit without drying out. If you know you won't finish the bread in time, freezing is a much better option than refrigerating. Just slice it first, wrap it well, and store it in the freezer. When you're ready for a piece, pop it straight into the toaster or warm it in the oven. It'll taste fresh, like you just. 9. Honey. Honey is truly special. It's one of the oldest natural foods we have, used for healing, soothing, and of course, sweetening. Whether you stir it into tea, drizzle it over toast, or take a spoonful to calm a sore throat, honey has always felt like a gentle remedy straight from nature. But here's something many people don't know: honey should never be stored in the refrigerator. It may seem like the fridge would help it last longer, but honey doesn't need help. In fact, it's one of the only foods in the world that doesn't spoil, as long as it's stored properly. Archaeologists have even found jars of honey in ancient tombs, thousands of years old, and still perfectly safe to eat. That's how powerful and self-preserving honey is. When you refrigerate honey, it crystallizes much faster. You've probably seen this before: it turns thick and gritty, or even hard, making it difficult to scoop or spread. Now, it's still perfectly safe to eat, but the texture isn't as smooth, and the flavor can lose some of its brightness. Plus, it's just a hassle trying to melt it back every time you want to use it. There's also a tiny risk most people don't think about. If the lid isn't sealed tightly, moisture can sneak in, and that tiny bit of water can actually lead to fermentation, especially in raw honey. That's rare, but still not worth the risk. So, what's the right way to store honey? Keep it in your pantry or cupboard, away from direct sunlight and heat. Make sure the lid is closed tightly after each use. That's all it needs. If it does crystallize over time, just place the jar in warm, not boiling, water and stir it gently. It'll return to its golden, silky state. 10. Olive oil. Olive oil is more than just something you cook with. It's tradition. It's health. It's that little drizzle that finishes a dish, the base of a homemade dressing, or the warm memory of someone in the family using it for everything from food to skincare. Especially in homes where cooking has always been an act of love, olive oil holds a special place. But if you're storing it in the refrigerator, it's time to stop. Here's why: when olive oil gets cold, it thickens. Sometimes it turns cloudy or even forms little white clumps. It's not spoiled, it just doesn't handle the cold well. Once it warms back up, it usually looks normal again, but repeated chilling and thawing can affect the flavor and freshness. Over time, that smooth, slightly peppery taste starts to fade. And it's not just about looks or taste. The fridge can also invite moisture inside the bottle, especially if it's opened often. Water and oil don't mix, and that bit of condensation can lead to spoilage or even bacteria if it sits too long. That's not a risk worth taking for something as pure and valuable as olive oil. The best place for olive oil is a cool, dark cupboard, away from the stove, away from direct sunlight. Heat, light, and air are its biggest enemies. That's why you'll often see good olive oil in dark glass bottles or tins. They help protect it from damage. Just keep the cap tightly closed, and it'll stay fresh for months. If you've invested in a good bottle of olive oil, treat it well. It's more than just a kitchen ingredient, it's part of a lifestyle. A small part, maybe, but a meaningful one. One that brings flavor, nourishment, and a sense of care to every dish. And there you have it, 10 everyday foods that don't belong in your refrigerator. It's funny, isn't it? We've spent our whole lives thinking we were doing the right thing by keeping things cold, neat, and tucked away. But sometimes, the old ways, the slower, simpler ways, really do make more sense. If you've made it to the end of this video, thank you. I'd love to hear from you. Just drop a quick comment below and tell me one thing you're going to change after watching this. Maybe you're moving the onions. Maybe the honey's coming out of the fridge. Whatever it is, I'd love to know. And if this video helped you, even in a small way, go ahead and click that like button, and if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next one. We're learning together, one simple change at a time. Take care of your food. Take care of your home. And most of all, take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next video.